Hey everyone, it's Angela Allen. Welcome back to the Handmade Homestead. Well, today is day number 25 in the Every Bit Counts challenge, and that means we only have 7 more days, counting today, until we are done with putting something in the pantry every day for the month of August. So today, let's talk about pesto, what it is and what it isn't. I usually start my day every day by going out to the garden, seeing what I can pick for that day's meals and any extra that I can process to put away in the freezers, can or dehydrate to put away for long-term storage. So that's what I've been doing during the pantry challenge, and I have been trying to look for things that are a little more unusual. Most people are doing tomatoes and green beans and canning and that kind of thing. But I do try to do some unusual things too, just for inspiration, both for you guys and for myself. Part of having a garden for our family isn't just to survive hard times, it's to thrive all the time. So we look to grow and make and put away things that we can't necessarily buy at the grocery store, just for the variety and just for the excitement in our meals. We love to cook and we love to eat. I'm absolutely an American, born and raised, but my grandparents were from Sicily, and I was raised in that Sicilian culture. So my family, though my husband is Norwegian and Irish, my family has grown up with a very Mediterranean style diet. One of the things I love to make is pesto. Now pesto, how Americans think of pesto, is usually the basil, pine nuts, garlic, olive oil, Parmesan cheese. That's what most people think. It's really any fresh herb sauce. It's usually served with pasta or on bread or potatoes, but truly it can be used in at least a million ways. Pesto doesn't have to be basil. It doesn't have to be pine nuts. The one thing that they all have in common pretty much is the use of olive oil, because that's very heavily used in the Mediterranean diet. But if you're a person that prefers to use avocado oil, you can do that. The flavor will be different, but that's okay as long as it's a flavor that you love. So let's talk about what pesto isn't. Pesto isn't cooked. It's usually raw, fresh herbs that are ground down with olive oil, garlic, and some kind of nut. Is it possible to use nuts other than pine nuts? Yes. Pine nuts are very expensive. They are delicious. They're really high in fat, but they're very expensive. But you can use walnuts, pistachio nuts, pecans, really any nuts or seeds that you want. And you're going to see that today. I'm going to use a combination of other nuts, and I'm even going to use a kind of flour. Let's start off by me showing you what herbs I brought in from the garden to use in my pesto today, and I think you'll be surprised. All right, I'm gonna lay out the herbs I picked from the garden so you can see, and let's get a look at what I have to use today. Okay, so here's my bowl. This just came in from the garden, still has the scissors. I'm gonna lay out these herbs so you can see what I have, and I'm gonna use a combination of these. I haven't even decided what yet, but just so you know the different things that you can add. These are just green onions. This, I know it looks like grass. These are garlic chives. Some of them have started to come into flower. They smell strongly of garlic. The flavor is very mild though. They are great in pesto. This, people call it space spinach. It's starting to go to flower a little bit. It tastes a lot like spinach. You plant these leaves. These have done really well for me in the garden. It's very heat tolerant, so I really like it, and it has a very mild herby flavor, so that's something that I enjoy. This is Swiss chard. These are the baby leaves of Swiss chard, which don't have as strong a flavor. They're really good in pesto too, and they help bulk up if you don't have enough basil. This is some more of that spinach. More. This is celery. These are celery leaves. I really just grabbed the tops on purpose because they have good flavor and a little bit of bitterness. But as you can see, I don't have a lot of them. Celery is a very strong flavor. it then can kind of eclipse everything. And I don't want it to take away from the basil flavor. I may or may not use that, depends on what I make. I may make a basil pesto and then a pesto of a different flavor. I haven't decided yet. More Swiss chard leaves. These are calendula flowers. They're not going in my pesto. To be honest, I bring them in as my flowers aren't putting out a lot now, but I bring them in as I see them bloom, just so I can dry them to add them to one of my tea buckets. So they're just an extra bonus. All right, so this is opal basil. Opal basil has the wonderful, typical, characteristic basil smell and flavor. It's just slightly spicier. It's lovely. But the thing is, will this turn my pesto darker? Yes, it will. So that's something to be aware of if you use opal basil. You're going to end up with darker pesto. But again, I'm okay with that. That doesn't bother me. And then I also have some holy basil in here. Now, holy basil has that basil smell, but it also has a sweeter, fruitier smell. I like it in tea really well, and you can cook with it. It will give a little bit of a different flavor to the basil. Whether I use that or I put this aside for tea, the jury's out. I'll decide that as I go and how it tastes. And then, of course, I do have in the bottom of my bucket, I do have regular basil. The other thing that I would add, and I forgot to grab on the way in, is mint. So if I want to add that, I can add some dry from my tea stash. But mint is also something that my grandmother would use mint in everything. And I mean spearmint, not peppermint. She used mint flavors in all of her red sauces, most of her hearty meat dishes and sauce dishes, and she would definitely have used it in pesto, anything going on pasta or potatoes, just a small amount. It's delicious. I would probably add that as well. Like I said earlier, nuts are a big part of pesto, but it doesn't have to be the traditional pine nuts. They are very high in fat, which lends a lot of flavor and creaminess and texture to the pesto too. But it's also very common to use walnuts, pistachios, cashews, which is mostly what I'm going to be using today. But you can use some seeds too, like these are pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds are delicious. They're oily. They have a great nutty flavor. I wouldn't use sunflower seeds because I'm not particularly fond of the flavor, but you could. It's also not uncommon to use almonds. Now these just happen to be slivered almonds. You can use almonds. Something I am going to use today is almond flour. Now here's my reason for using this. I have it. It's been sitting here and it needs to be used up. And it is about the same texture as cheese. It is very finely ground, which in pesto, you want things chopped, not pureed. But I am going to use it. I already have it. And the only other thing I need is olive oil. So I'm going to use a good quality extra virgin olive oil, something that's not too bitter. So I'm just going to make this the way I want to make it. I'm not going to do any big recipe about it. This is just so that you can make what you want. Okay, I'm going to get going. I use these little shallow plastic containers. I got them originally on Amazon, but I do wash them out and reuse them every year. That helps keep them airtight in the fridge. They're easier to defrost. And that is a good amount that, you know, is a perfect amount for a meal for my family. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to just go right ahead. I am not going to run the sound through this because this food processor is so loud. But you can see I'm going to just do a mixture of stuff. I grabbed some other herbs, some thyme, some oregano, some pepper, of course, and lemon juice to cut some of the oil flavor. And I'm just going to make, taste, and do what tastes good to my family. Okay, so that made 5 containers of pesto for the freezer. I'll probably do another batch or 2 before winter, but that's what we got for now. The little bit of pesto that's left, I already have some pasta getting ready to cook on the stove. We'll mix that in, throw in a can of tuna maybe, and we'll have that for lunch. As far as the leftover herbs go, the holy basil, the little bit of opal basil, those are just going to go right on the dehydrator. I have to get some other herbs going anyway. These will only take up 1 rack, so nothing goes to waste. That wraps up day 25 in the Every Bit Counts challenge for the month of August. This is our 25th video. I can't wait to see what tomorrow brings. I will see you tomorrow for day 26 of the Every Bit Counts challenge. Take care.